Welcome everyone to our Coaching Pathways to Success interview series, which is proudly brought to you by ICF Australasia Southern States branch. This series brings to life diverse stories from our very own members about how they're making a living out of coaching. We know from our members' feedback that this is the number one challenge they face. My name is Panise, and I'm a member of the ICF Southern States leadership team. And I'm so happy to welcome Jo Wise, who will be giving our members invaluable insights today into her own personal coaching pathway to success. A little about Jo Wise. Jo is an ICF Master Certified Coach and Master NLP. She is a leadership coach and executive performance behavioral advisor to female leaders who really care about what they do and how they do it. Jo helps professional women lead boldly and unapologetically so they can make the impact and get the pay rise and promotions they deserve. She does this through her Rise and Shine online membership forum, her coaching programs, and speaking engagements. Jo is passionate about creating a world with powerful female leaders in an equal number across business and government. She emphasizes workplaces that are more empathetic, kind, flexible, collaborative, and open to drive meaningful conversations, thoughtful interactions, and sustainable outcomes. Thank you so much, Jo, for joining us today.
Thanks, Fred. It's lovely to be here with you.
Nice. And I would like to go straight to my first question. Tell us about your transition from your previous role to coaching.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So, Fred, I've been in coaching now for 13 years. I always know that milestone because I started my business pretty much as soon as my son was born, and he's 13. But to transition, I actually worked for about 10 years for American Express in leadership and training positions over the years here in Melbourne and also over in Western Australia. And I was always really interested in obviously leadership and training, but also like the mindset behind that. Like, what was it that made someone a great leader? You know, what was it? Why in some training rooms were people able to listen to me really, really great, and then others not so much? So I was always sort of interested in what was going on behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So when I did get pregnant with my son, I wanted to work part-time so that I could be really super healthy during pregnancy. And MX weren't very keen with that. So I ended up leaving and working for a private institution like a TAFE, a college, mm-hmm. And training tourism, leadership, and business. And it was during that time, I had my son, I started my coaching business, I started my coaching training, and by default started my coaching business straight away, because for me, I knew I wanted to make money from it. I had no idea what that meant.
Yeah.
But I knew I wanted to make money. So I really started my business straight away. Although if there was some business person out there, they might go, well, technically it wasn't a business. But for me, it felt like a business because I was bringing a couple of clients at a time. There was all my experience that I've had, through all of my different careers, and I've had quite a few different careers. American Express was probably the biggest impact and what really helped me realize I wanted to become a coach. But when I was working at this college, this private institution, I was coaching, I was doing my studies, and I was also had a couple of clients here and there. And I was in a meeting one day with the new CEO and a few other people on the leadership, that were on the leadership mm-hmm. Team there. And they were talking about all the challenges that a lot of the staff were facing in that organization. I remember when we were leaving the meeting, I said to the CEO on the way out, because I hadn't actually met her before, even though I was in the meeting, and I introduced myself and I said, look, I don't know if you know this, but I also run a part-time business, and I'm a trainer and a coach, and I deliver training programs that would actually very much in line with a lot of the challenges that your people are facing right now.
Wow.
And she was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. She said, well, what could you offer? And I said, well, one of the things I'm currently doing in my very successful business at the moment is running these lunch and learn sessions in businesses. And so I go in and I'll do like a 6-week program, and I'll go and do, a lunchtime session each week. in these, in the business, and we'll talk about things, like stress management and, how to be productive and have a really strong mindset. And she said to me, oh, fantastic. If you can get a proposal on my desk by the end of the day today for that, I'll present it to the board tonight. And I was like, yeah, of course, that'd be great. And of course, she walked around the corner, and then I almost had a heart attack, because my very successful business that I was running at the time was a couple of coaching clients that I had, and I hadn't ever done the training that I said I'd done. So I called a couple of friends and was like, how do you put a proposal together? And Googled, and I literally put some dot points together on a page, and I gave it to her by the end of the day. Of course, I walked into her and I was like, oh, here's the proposal. Yes, there you go. As if it was something that I did every single day.
Yeah.
And then when I came back the next day to work, she said, yes, it's going ahead. When can we get started? And, there were so many things, obviously, that impacted me getting into coaching and actually, what makes a successful coach. But in that moment when they said yes, there was a couple of key things that played out for me. One was like, oh my goodness, I can do this. The second thing was, that, we talk about the concept in coaching of saying yes and working out how. Mm-hmm. That was a time I really did that, where I really felt that I didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, but I completely knew that I'd be able to do it. Yeah. So, and when she said yes, it just made it all possible for me. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I find absolutely hysterical about that is I was working there at about 2.5 days each week at the time. And the price that I put on the proposal for me to do the lunchtime learnings, for the 1 hour each week, I was going to be earning more than I did for 2.5 days in the role. And she didn't even question it. She was like, yeah, let's do it. And it made me realize that all of these things people have been saying about coaching, that you can make great money and we can use these coaching, we could learn the coaching concepts and put them in practice, in training. All the things people have been saying were actually really possible for me in that moment. And that for me was a really big moment of realizing, of transition, because it was not long after that I actually left my daytime jobs altogether and transitioned into my business completely, like, full-time or part-time really. But yeah, so to answer your question in a very long way, yeah, that's sort of how I transitioned. But it wasn't, I hear people talk about, transitioning, and they, sometimes it feels like it's a really smooth, clear transition, but it really doesn't need to be. It certainly wasn't for me. For me, it was just like holding on and hoping for the best, I think.
Yes. So thank you so much, Joe. Oh my God, it's I love the action part. Do it. Make it happen. Yeah. And you touch a little bit about some obstacles, but I want to hear more about it. What obstacles in your journey, and how did you overcome? Tell me a little bit more about that.
To be honest, Fred, I think that, and I don't want people to take this the wrong way, but I think at the beginning, every single thing is an obstacle in starting a business. So for me, I had no experience in business. My parents ran a farm, and I'd never actually thought of that until I was actually in business for quite a few years. I'd never thought of that as about that they ran their own business. They certainly never included us in the decisions or discussions about, the family business at all. So I felt that going in, I had no experience, no understanding, and I'd never really sort of seen what it takes to run a business. So for me, I think absolutely everything was an obstacle in starting to run a business, because of all those things. I had no idea what it was going to take. And to be honest, when I first went into coaching, I decided that I was starting my coaching business and this is what's going to happen. And I think I expected that just because I'd sat at my desk hiding behind my computer and said that my business is now open, I think I thought that people would just start lining up at the door, and that, I would just start making money just like that. And that didn't happen immediately. And that was quite a shock for me, because I was like, but hang on, I'm running a business now. Like, where are all the people? Where's all the money? What's going on?
Yeah.
So when I say everything was an obstacle, I absolutely mean it, because I I was studying when I first started, like, we all do in the ICF, we go through our courses and so there's a huge part of that you're learning new things and restructuring your brain and learning new concepts and mindset and all of that. But going into a business for me, was massive, massive challenge because I had no grounding in it whatsoever. But I think once I started in business and realizing what I did want, I was very clear on what I didn't want. Don't get me wrong, I was very clear on all of the things that were going wrong and what all the challenges were and the obstacles like you're talking about, Fred. But I think it sort of actually stopping and asking myself what it is that I did want, like what I wanted to create. And I know that we all coach our clients and being clear on the outcome, and we've got, our NLP success principles and getting clear on the outcome, getting clear on the intention. But for me, I missed that point until I was a bit, probably, 6 to 12 months into my business. And I remember one day sitting down, going to a cafe, which is where I do my best work, and thinking about, like, what do I really want this? Like, why do I want this? And at the time, all I could come up with was that when my, child that was a baby, when he was old enough to go to school, I wanted to be a parent that dropped up my child and picked them up from school pretty much every day, and that I was able to have school holidays with him, which meant, 10 to 12 weeks school holiday a year. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to have enough money to be able to take my family on international holidays regularly. Now I think back and I'm like, wow, that was my first why. And I think one of the really important things is ways of overcoming obstacles we know is getting clear on what you want. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, why is this important for us? And we all know that. But for me, I actually had to sit down and go through the process to work out what it was that I wanted. And it was really simplistic at the time. It was literally, I had 5 years until my child was going to be at school, and I wanted to be able to do those, have holidays, do those things with them. And that was enough for me to get me out of bed and to help me recognize that if I just kept going, I was going to be able to create this thing. I was going to be able to create this business that would, give me the money and the resources and time to be able to be the type of mum that I wanted to be. I think we've all heard in the, on Instagram and Facebook and in the coaching, coaching hashtags as, have a bigger vision than your problems. And for me, that really, really worked. And at the time, although the vision wasn't overly lofty, it was meaningful to me. And I think that's really important for us to recognize that we've got to start where we are. So, whatever your coaching dream is, even if you don't know what it is, which I had no idea what I wanted to do with coaching back then, but I knew that I wanted to make money and I knew I wanted holidays. So I was able to start there. Mm-hmm. And obviously, as time goes by, now that I'm, I work with female leaders and, my why is a very different why, and it's a lot more lofty and a lot more challenging. But that, it still has that same impact where, I do still sort of tune into that when I'm having challenges, because the obstacles don't go away. I don't think they just get, as we grow, the issues grow and the obstacles grow into different types of obstacles. That's one of the things I always sort of harness when I am going through challenging times. Mm-hmm. But if I think about what overcoming obstacles, I think back to my obstacles that I really faced my first few years was pretty much, I think it would summarize or sort of come down into the theme of not believing in myself. I was a coach. I had all of these magical tools. I was, helping other people. But anytime where I was coming to obstacles, it was always around not having that belief in myself, which has had to build and build and build and build, because it's the only way that we overcome the obstacles is to change in our belief in ourselves. And that sometimes is really easy and can, be a simple reframe. And other times it can be, calling a friend or speaking to my coach, or because I still make sure that I'm working with coaches regularly. And also, I think not believing it's possible. Sort of, we all hear about, the Tony Robbins and the, all the big names in coaching and all the quotes of, if you can dream it, you can have it. And it's all great to believe when things are going well, but when those obstacles are like right there in your face and they're huge and massive, it's like way more challenging to believe in that stuff, right? And even still sometimes, you know, I need to remind myself when I'm going after something new or something big or in something in a different way, it quite often comes down to the not believing it's possible. And then I think taking that time to sort of step back and go, okay, hang on. What is it that I really want? Let's get really clear on that. Let's bring the energy to that I want. And also to be real about what the obstacles are. And one of the things I see in coaching sometimes is that there's some people sort of in coaching that seem to be a little bit like, well, let's just pretend that the obstacles aren't there. I don't find that very helpful at all. I've got to be honest with myself and see sort of face the obstacles and go, okay, what is it? What's actually really going on here? Because it's very rarely what we think it is, or what's on the surface. Like with a coaching session, right, Fred? When we're coaching, we know that the client walks in with an issue here, but it's always something else. I think it's exactly the same with ourselves. It's sort of not believing it's possible, not believing in ourselves. Yeah, I think they're probably two of the biggest ones. And overcoming them for me is always around making sure that I've got super smart people around me that I can have conversations with. I'm really lucky to have an amazing partner that I've got that I can talk to about challenges, and being willing to face them, you know, sometimes have a conversation with them, find out where the fear is and what it's really about. Yeah, I think that sort of gives us a bit to go with as well. But just on that as well, one thing, I think one of the things with the obstacles is that realizing that the obstacles are not going to be what you think they are. Because I think for me, I thought that the obstacles were going to be, you know, the fact that I didn't know how to run a business. And whilst that brought up challenges, that's pretty easy to find out information and work past. For me, it always, and I see it so often with coaches as well, that it generally the obstacles are actually, you know, they're all in here. We know, I mean, we're coaches, right? So we know that with our clients. It's true with us too.
100%. And without words regarding how much you are, giving right now. You can see through, your master, that mastery that came through so many years, working. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. I'm sure that I'm going back, and listen again and then get, all those points, and it's amazing, Joe. Thank you so much. And you touch quite a few points, for success in your business. I really want you to give us a bit more about, the key points for a successful coaching business from your experience.
If I had to say one thing, there's one thing, I think it would be the saying yes and working out how. So, and, as coaches, we hear this, we talk about it all the time, but actually doing that for ourselves all of the time. And even still, right, 13 years in. So I'm working with a new business at the moment, and we're putting together some trainings, all coaching concepts, trainings in the next couple of months. And they've been, I've been having these conversations for 13 years, but it's a very different type of business, and they're very different type of people than I normally work with. And there's been a couple of times during this experience when I'm like, oh man, this is just too hard. I just can't be bothered doing this, right? But then I sort of step back and go, actually, no, it's actually really important work that I'm going to be doing there with them and so on. But it's saying yes and working out how, even during these conversations that I'm having now, that because the people are quite different, and, just the way they run their business is very different to what I'm used to. It's allowing myself to sort of be okay to not have all of the jigsaw pieces into place at all of the time, and going, well, yeah, some of that'll come later, Joe, or I'll work that out. So the challenges don't stop, right? I think, and that could be quite deflating, I imagine, hearing that. But I think what actually does happen is we grow. And so we just have different types of challenges, and we've got way more skills to deal with them, right? So things that I was challenged by 5 years ago and 10 years ago, I'm challenged by very different things now, but it's like the reality is, well, I certainly am. I don't know if everybody is, but I'm still challenged in business. But saying yes and working out how will always skyrocket your results. Whenever I think of saying yes and working out how, I think of early on in my business, that conversation I had with the CEO of that business that I was working in part-time. I told her I was running, I'd already done these things. And I actually, in reality, I hadn't necessarily done those things maybe in exactly the way that I said. But one of the sayings I always say with coaching is it's not open heart surgery here. Like we're having conversations with people and we can't make anyone do anything they don't want to do. And I take my coaching very, very seriously, but we have way more skills inside of us than we think we have. So, saying yes and working out how. And I did that a lot early on in my business, calling businesses and, contacts that I'd had and saying, hey, it's great. I heard you'd opened this business and, if I'd worked with them in the past and so on, and just really connecting with the people, but being willing in those conversations, if an opportunity came up, to be the type of person that goes, oh, hey, did you know that I've done that before, or I'm currently doing that in my business, when technically that may not have been actually true, but knowing that it's not open heart surgery, I can pretty much do anything I put my mind to. And so saying yes and working out how. I just think that particularly in the first few years of running a business, I reckon that's one of the things that will actually get people off the ground, but it doesn't stop. It's continually saying yes and working out how, I think. That's a big one, Fred. And you would find that in your own business as well, right?
I love the way that you are sharing with us, your evolution and growth. I hear you, and I remember my times as well, saying yes and say, oh my God, what do I have to do now? I said, yes, I have to deliver. And it happens.
Yeah.
But that's where the growth comes. And thank you so much for.
It's what you said, Fred. It's saying yes and then going, oh my goodness, now I've got to deliver. But I think there's like something underneath about knowing I actually can deliver. So it really doesn't matter what it is. I know I'm going to be able to do it. But I don't think that comes from just having like rock solid self-belief or, oozing confidence or any of those things. It comes from being willing to put ourselves in situations where we know, for me, I know I've got, a pretty broad, stroke of skills. I've also got a hell of a lot of people around me that I can call at any time and go, like I have before, like right at the start, I called a friend and I'm like, oh my God, do you know what a proposal is and how I put one together? Because I've just been asked to do one and I don't really know what this thing is. So like just being willing to go, I've got what it takes to deliver it, even if I don't know what it is. I've got people around me and, oh my God, Google as well, like has pretty much everything we need. So it's not like we're sitting at home on our own going, I have no idea about this, So key points for success, I think that if I had to say one thing, and I think as well, Fred, it's also about creating the new belief, like continually being willing to create the new beliefs that take us to what our new level of success is, or our new definition of or criteria for success is. I know with this new business that I've been working with recently, and there's been lots and lots of challenges through this, I've even been looking at some of my beliefs and having to tweak and upgrade them so that I'm able to go into those conversations in a way that I want to be and create the perception of myself that I want. So I think that's that, like realizing that that's a continuous evolution as well. One of the things I do in my business is I teach at a coaching school, at the Life Coaching College. That's an ICF accredited school, of course. One of the things that the students will quite often say there is, it's okay for you because you've been in here, doing this for 13 years, so it must be all smooth sailing. And it's like, well, there's a lot of really cool stuff about my life and what I do that I've created, but, there's still the need to step up. There's still the need to, to trust and believe myself and create new beliefs. That just is a continual thing that happens all of the time, I think. But if I was to say one more thing around, success, key points for success for coaching, it is also, and I think this gets dropped off with coaching a lot because of our mindset stuff, because, mindset is everything in coaching. But it's focusing on the money is also really important, and recognizing that if you're not making money, you don't have a business. I'm very open talking about money in business, and when I'm talking, to leaders and so on, because it's something that in our society, for some reason, is sort of frowned upon or shied away from, or it's not something that we talk about. Well, it's particularly as a female, it's not ladylike to talk about money. Well, I think all of that is not helpful. And I also think a lot of that language is created to help people stay stuck and small, and to have people not talk about money, because you've got to talk about money if you're going to have a business. So I think it's like actually recognized to be focused on the money. It's okay to be focused on the money, to get clear on what you want to make. And the more comfortable you get talking about money, the earlier in your coaching journey, the better it's going to be. So, it's a lot of people find it, icky or weird or whatever to talk about money, but that's unhelpful. So flip that belief to something else. You're a coach. If you're listening to this, you've got to flip that to something else. And, being willing to talk to people about money and is going to help you be more comfortable when you're talking to clients about money. And, when you're, telling them this is how much the coaching program is going to cost. I think it's the more comfortable you get with that, and the more you put your prices up, the better, because it's all of those, every single time you put your prices up, you're overcoming an obstacle for yourself, you're overcoming a challenge. And, that's going to bring more financial abundance into your life, and probably gives you more opportunities to give back to the community, and so on in different ways. So I think that's something that's really important to talk about, because it's, I found early on a lot of people are unwilling to talk about money in coaching. And there's also a bit of a belief out there with some people in coaching that, I'm not in it to make the money, I'm in here to contribute. I think that can be also unhelpful, because I think people sometimes think they can do one or the other. So I'm very driven by contribution to others, and I get paid for every single minute of that. So, and it's very important for me to get paid for what I do, because I've invested a lot of time, energy and effort and experience into getting to where I am. And it's absolutely not only okay, but really important that I'm asking for the value, an acceptable, value, an exchange of service. I'm giving something. And so it's definitely okay for me to be asking and for having money for that in that exchange of service. So we can contribute, and it's okay to be the type of person that wants to contribute and give back to our society, and to also make money from it.
You gave it so real. It's the reality, the value. So many important points, Joe. I'm sure that we can stay here for another day or two, bring some coffee and biscuits, and off we go.
I'll always say yes to a coffee, Fred. You know me.
I know. I know you for quite a few years, and I'm so happy now that our paths crossed, and it's beautiful to have this conversation with you today.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Fred, for asking me along. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful insights and everything that you provided to our coaching community. I'm sure that they will take that and grow as well. I will do as well. I got a lot from you today, again and again and again. So for members, that would like to contact you, how is the best way to contact you, Joe?
So I've got a website which is called Joe Wise Leadership. When you've got a surname like Wise, you need to use it. So joewiseleadership.com is my website, and it's also, Joe at Joe Wise Leadership is my email address as well. So I do work, with female leaders, and some of those leaders end up being coaches as well. So as you mentioned at the beginning, I do one-on-one coaching, and I still do one-on-one coaching. A lot of people transition through coaching and move out of the one-on-one coaching, but I get so much out of it. I know my clients get so much out of it, and it's such a financially viable product that I continue to do it because I just love it so much. And I've also got my online membership as well that people can read about in Rise and Shine, which is all on my website as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you again, and for all those listening. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Fred. It's great to see you again. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.